Dear students and teachers, a very warm welcome to all of you. We're absolutely thrilled to have you join us today, fortnightly workshop on unraveling the mysteries of science. This special session is being conducted to mark National Science Day, which is celebrated on 28th of February, tomorrow. National Science Day commemorates the discovery of the Raman effect by Sir C.V. Raman, a groundbreaking contribution to the world of physics that earned him the Nobel Prize. It is a day to honor the spirit of scientific inquiry, innovation, and curiosity. Science isn't just about textbook or lab experiment. It's all around us, from the graceful flight of the birds to the secrets of how plants grow. From the stunning colors of a rainbow to the cutting edge gadgets we use every day, science helps us understand the magic behind everything. So let's use this opportunity to celebrate science, ask questions, and ignite our curiosity. I'm Aniket Arora, your moderator for today's session, and I couldn't be more excited to embark on this learning adventure with all of you. So let's make this session interactive, insightful, and enriching. So feel free to share your thoughts, ask questions, and let your curiosity lead the way. So before we start, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Poonam Arora, who is a senior principal scientist and head IST division at CSIR National Physical Laboratory. She is also the secretary of Indian Women Scientists Association Delhi branch. And we're also honored to welcome Professor Sujata Sharma, who is our speaker of the session today. Dr. Sharma is a professor at the Department of Biophysics at AIIMS, New Delhi, and an internationally renowned expert in antimicrobial drug resistance. Beyond her groundbreaking research, she is also a celebrated author and a passionate science communicator. Her exceptional contributions have earned her numerous prestigious awards, including the Women Bioscientist Award presented by the President of India, the Kalpana Chawla Excellence Award, the National Bioscience Award for Career Development, the International TWAS Award for Public Understanding of Science, and Peak Life Women Inspire Award. Doc- I'm sorry. Dr. Sharma has authored six acclaimed books blending science, autobiography, and fiction, such as Conversations with Shambhu, The Secret of Red Crystals, and COVID Promise, the latter being recognized by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Sri Narendra Modi, for promoting science among children. He also runs the popular YouTube channel Popular Science and is the founding president of BioFootprints, an organization dedicated to fostering scientific literacy and curiosity across communities. We are truly privileged to have her with us today, ready for an inspiring and insightful session today. Thank you so much. So I'd like to hand over to Dr. Poonam Arora.
Thank you, Aniket. Thank you very much for the introduction. And I welcome all the students here. We have touched a mark of almost 100 now, so it's pretty exciting. So I really welcome all the students to this camp platform and this lecture being organized by Indian Women Scientists Association. As you have already heard, we are celebrating National Science Day today. It is, well, actually tomorrow, February 28th, but everybody is busy on Science Day. So, and our fortnightly series happens on Thursday afternoon. So we picked up today's day to mark the National Science Day for 2025. So the National Science Day has been celebrated in India since 1987, and every year a theme is decided. So this year, the theme for the National Science Day celebration is empowering Indian youth for global leadership in science and innovation for Viksit Bharat. So I think we are right here on correct note and really taking the theme of this year in true spirit. And we have our young generation, our youth, you all, the building blocks of Viksit Bharat here with us, and no better way to celebrate National Science Day than give a nice science lecture to the young innovators of Viksit Bharat. And I'm very excited for today's lecture because we have, being Indian Women Scientists Association, we always look up to women leaders who are already well established in their fields, and we have, such a bright speaker today, Professor Sujata Sharma from the Institute of National Importance, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and she is biophysicist and a science communicator, and she has got a number of awards you've already heard. So she's a phenomenal scientist. We all look up to her, and I'm sure that you all will be benefited by her expertise and her knowledge, and you will get to understand some of the mysteries of science today, and we really look forward to it. So thank you so much, ma'am. We are honored to have you here, and we look forward to your lecture. So I'll not be in between. Without further ado, I request you to kindly deliver the National Science Day 2025 lecture. Please, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Poonam. It's such a great honor to be here on this platform and interacting with all the wonderful children that I can see. And thank you, Aniket, also. So I would like to straight away go and share my slide presentation. So can everybody see my screen?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay. So the topic I deliberately chose because, as a scientist, I've always been very curious, and I know that if you're interested in science, you have to have a very curious mind. So I've tried very hard to keep it very simple and understandable and engaging, and I hope that the children will like it. So basically, when you say what is science, because nowadays science is being
Excuse me,
given.
ma'am. Sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt, but the slide is not in the slideshow mode. So, can you go to the
I
slideshow mode for better visibility?
Yeah, I've made a slideshow. Just see.
Probably we are not able to. We are just watching your PowerPoint window.
Okay, because I made it slideshow.
Maybe you're not sharing the entire screen. Maybe you're sharing a window or something. Can you
No,
just try once, ma'am? Because
I'll just try.
otherwise,
You
I'll
can
try
full
again.
screen it.
I'll
I think you
stop
can,
share and then start.
or
Otherwise, I have a PDF also which I can display.
um,
no,
Can you
you
see it
can
now?
full screen it, or you can share it in slideshow.
I have made it slideshow. Can you see it now? No.
No,
not in
ma'am.
slideshow, ma'am.
What I'll do is I will open my PDF then because sometimes PowerPoint does this. So just a minute. Just give me a second. Just a minute. I'm trying again. Otherwise, I'll have to. What I do is I'll go to another computer if this is not working.
Maybe you can zoom out the slides, ma'am. Even that would work.
Okay. Okay. So can you see the slide, which is what is science, systematic way of understanding?
Yes, ma'am. We can see it, but it is only the it's not in the slideshow mode, so we just don't see it in the full screen. So only so maybe from the bottom right when
I have
corner.
tried it, but it is not working.
No, bottom right corner. You see
Ah,
this
I saw that.
zoom. So you can just 78%. It's right
Okay.
now. You maybe
Ah,
maybe try to increase it.
okay.
Okay, but then we lose the view.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. I think there's some issue. So maybe we can just continue. All
Okay.
right.
So basically, what is science? Like nowadays, especially the older children, when they are told what is science, then sometimes in school it's entirely lost in translation because it's all about science sections, commerce sections. But if you just try to demystify what is science, and it's a very systematic way of understanding the natural world through observation, experimentation, and reasoning. The main thing is that science is based on evidence and logic, and always uses experiments. And also, science is not static. It is not that once it's published as your textbook, then science stops there. Science keeps on reinventing and evolving. So, can you see the next slide? Without science, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what had happened was that when there was no science and everything was based on myths or traditions. And even now you will see that many people who are not very well educated or who are not very scientific will always refer back to the traditions or the myths or the nuskhe that people talk about. But when you rely on science, then as it's written on the screen, the beauty of science is that people actually change their minds based on new evidence. On the other hand, if you base everything on traditions, then you will not feel like changing your mind. And that is why it's very important to be scientific. And again, science is not just a career. Science is also a way of thinking. I know many scientists who are not that scientific as many normal people who are actually not scientists, but they have a scientific way of thinking. So, and there's another myth that science and creativity, curiosity, and imagination are not connected. Many people feel that if you have a great imagination or you're very creative, then why don't you take up other fields and not science? But that is not true. Because as Einstein, and you must all be knowing who is Einstein, as Einstein said, that imagination is more important than knowledge. If you're curious, then you can be a great scientist because science is all about asking what if this happened, why not, why can't I do this, and why not this or that. And of course, if you're creative, then it doesn't mean that you have to go into some art form. You can be a great scientist because then you'll be able to find unique solutions. Like, can I send somebody to Mars? Can I cure this disease, that disease, etc. And of course, if you have a real good imaginative mind, then again you can be a great scientist because scientists have to imagine things. And to prove my point, I'm going to show you some examples of great scientists who were very creative, very imaginative, had great observation powers, and they were very curious. Often we've seen that very small children are the most curious. As the younger you are, the more curious you are. As you grow up, you start assuming, okay, this is this, and you stop asking questions. But to be a great scientist, you have to have a childlike mind. So Albert Einstein, as you all know, he gave the theory of relativity that completely transformed physics, and it also laid the foundation for modern science. And if you have to go through his achievements, then of course he proved that energy and mass are connected. He proved that atoms and molecules exist, and also light is made of particles. His theory is what is leading to discoveries even today. That is even 70 years after he has died. And how did he go about making this theory? He just imagined himself riding a beam of light. He just closed his eyes and he imagined this, and that particular thing led him to actually bring out about the relativity theory. Until today, nuclear energy, quantum mechanics, space travel, all is being influenced by that theory of relativity. Now, I'm going to give you another example. You know the structure of benzene. Now, benzene is basically a molecule that is used for many things. Like, it is used for your medicines and various different types of medicines. They use the structure of benzene. But you know how it was discovered? We had a scientist called Frederick Kekulen who one day he just dozed off, he slept, and he dreamt of a snake eating its own tail. And actually, that is Ouroboros, which is an ancient symbol that depicts a snake or dragon eating its own tail. And it denotes infinity, self renewal, cyclicity, etc. When he imagined that, then it hit him that, okay, maybe benzene is not a linear branched kind of a molecule, which so far, the molecules that were discovered were always linear. So he said, okay, maybe it is cyclical. And that is how this came about. And you know how it completely revolutionized the making of different type of medicines and plastics, polymers. Another example is Isaac Newton. You must have, of course, all children must have heard of him. You know that when he was sitting under a tree, an apple fell down, and he looked at we all look at things falling here and falling there, but we don't think. But here was this person who thought, why is it falling down? Why is it not floating away? Why is it not going up? And that is how he discovered gravity. So again, this was the power of observation, creativity, imagination. And when he discovered gravity, that is how he explained how planets after him, all these discoveries, all these manufacturing came about, airplanes, bridges, everything is now based on gravity. He also helped us understand black holes, time dilation, and the universe's expansion. And of course, even the GPS that you have now, time travel theories, all are based on that one observation that he made of apple falling down. And of course, this example is of Archimedes. You must have heard about Archimedes sitting in a bathtub and running and saying, Eureka, Eureka, Eureka means I finally found it. So he was a Greek mathematician and inventor. And he sat in a bathtub and he saw that all the water was flowing up out of the bathtub. And that is how he realized that this water is actually getting displaced. And so he gave his principle that an object in a fluid experiences an upward force equal to the weight of displaced fluid. And again, that helps us in shipbuilding, submarines, and density testing. So, and the final example is of Wright brothers. Again, you must have heard about them. These were two brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright. And at that time, everybody was trying to figure out how to make aircraft which is actually going to be stable in the sky. And they were the ones who were a little different from others. They sat and just kept looking at birds. And when they looked at birds, then they realized that they are tilting their wings. And that helped them to design the aircraft in such a way that it tilts. And that tilt is what, you must, if whenever you sit in a flight, you must have seen that your aircraft is getting tilted as it takes off. So that is the principle they used. And their first successful flight was for only 12 seconds. But that once 12-second flight changed everything. And today we are able to sit in airplanes, and all the aircraft engineering is based on that. So now coming after giving these 3, 4 very interesting examples, which I find very exciting, now I'll come to why February 28th is celebrated as the Science Day. Well, it's a National Science Day. That means it belongs to India to honor the discovery of the Raman effect by Sir, because he was knighted. He was knighted. He was that good that he was knighted. So that's why we call him Sir C.V. Raman on this date in 1928. And the theme for this, every year we have a National Science Day and every year we have a different theme. This time the theme is empowering Indian youth for global leadership in science and innovation for Viksit Bharat. That only means that we want to nurture young talent, that is, nurture young students like you to drive India's scientific and technological advancement, aiming for a developed nation. So when I say 1928, I am talking about the Raman effect, and that is why we are celebrating it. But 1928 is a very, very interesting year. It was a landmark year for science, and we had other discoveries as well. Penicillin was discovered by Alexander Fleming. Vitamin C was discovered, and iron lung was discovered. I will just touch upon these discoveries one after the other. So first, starting with Sir C.V. Raman. Like I said, that scientists usually stare at things which are happening around them. They keep on wondering why this is happening. So he was in London and he was fascinated that the Mediterranean Sea, that he saw that it's got such a deep blue color. That was when he was coming back from London to India. That is when he wondered why is it so blue. And by that time, there was a scientist called Rayleigh who had actually said that light, when it hits a certain surface, it does not actually change its properties. But Raman felt that this is not true. Maybe there's something more to it. And there's this constant feeling of there's something more, that makes a true scientist. So he was basically doing spectroscopy since we have small children with us. So I'll just explain what is spectroscopy. It's a study of how light or other forms of electromagnetic radiation, they interact with matter. Matter means any kind of material. So this is, this, as you can see, this was a small spectrograph which Sir Raman used. Can you see how rudimentary and primitive it is? Now we have such great machines, such advanced technology, but at that time he was using just that. And he saw that when light interacts with molecules, he was able to prove that it scatters unchanged, yes, but a small fraction of light does change its wavelength due to energy transfer. And that particular thing was called Raman scattering. And he said that that is unique to every substance. And so it is like its fingerprint. So scientists, he said, can use this to identify materials and study other structures. Such was this discovery that Sir C.V. Raman, he won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1930 for this discovery of his. And we are proud that he was the first Indian scientist to win a Nobel Prize in science. That is why now you will appreciate why this particular day is the National Science Day for India. And are we still using Raman effect? Yes, we are. It's being used in various areas, like it has medical uses. Our doctors and surgeons are checking for brain tumors during the surgery. And of course, it's being used in space exploration. The NASA's Perseverance rover, that is a particular kind of a machine that has gone to Mars, that analyzes Martian rocks and soil using Raman effect. Then, of course, it is used in security because the police can scan, suspicious powders or materials to check whether they're illegal drugs or explosives. And we also use it in pollution because, in various rivers, it is being used to detect whether there are any toxic heavy metals or not. So now that I've finished with the Raman's effect, I'll go to the next great discovery of 1928, and that was vitamin C. All children must be aware of vitamin C. I'm sure your parents and your doctors often say that you must take vitamin C every day. And yes, it is very important to take it every day. It's also known as ascorbic acid. But there was a time when nobody had any idea about vitamin C. So, what is vitamin C actually? It's a vitamin, it's a nutrient which boosts the immune system, it protects you against infections and illnesses. And there's something called free radicals in your body. They're the ones which are causing all the disease by reacting with various things. So these free radicals, uh, it basically vitamin C fights and it slows down aging also, and all the various diseases like cancer, heart problems, it deals with. And where is it found? Oranges, lemons, strawberries, kiwis, etc., fruits and vegetables. So this slide is only to show you that there are various types of vitamins, and A, D, and E and K. These are stored inside your body. But vitamin B, all the vitamin B complexes and C are not stored in your body because they are water soluble. So you have to make sure that you take them every day of your life. So that is the reason now you know why everyone insists that you must take vitamin C. So you people please make sure that you do that. So now going back to the past. Now this was a time when we had not discovered vitamin C, and there was a disease called scurvy. Now scurvy is a disease which happens when there's a some lack of vitamin C in your body. And surprisingly, it was happening to sailors. There was a kind of an epidemic of scurvy in sailors, and it was killing more sailors than battles or shipwrecks could ever do. And as you can see, these are the symptoms of scurvy: fatigue, swollen, bleeding gums, slow wound healing, joint and muscle pain, and most of them were dying also, organ failure and death. And why was this happening? Because they used to go for long, long voyages. There was no access to fresh food. They used to actually live on meat, dry biscuits, and those this did not have vitamin C. But at that time, nobody knew this is the reason. And then we had a scientist in 1928, Dr. Albert Send Gorgi. He isolated a mysterious compound from oranges and adrenal glands. And that time he called it hexuronic acid. He didn't know that it's vitamin C, but in 1932, Charles Glenn King proved that this is vitamin C and it prevented scurvy. So it was a very big discovery. And it also led to a greater life expectancy once this was discovered. And that is why in 1937, Albert St. Gorgi received the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for his discovery. And of course, the first antibiotic, penicillin, was also discovered in 1928. You must have heard about Dr. Alexander Fleming. And I've written his quote over here. When I woke up just after dawn on September 28, 1928, I certainly didn't plan to revolutionize all medicine by discovering the world's first antibiotic. So he had no idea. That is how science is. Lots of times I've also gotten up in the morning thinking it's an ordinary day. I go to my lab and I suddenly this doesn't happen very often, but once in 10 years I've seen a discovery is made. That is how science is. It's very exciting. There are long, long periods of hard work, and suddenly you've made a discovery and you're on the top of the world. So this is what happened with him. So just to tell small children what are antibiotics, antibiotics are medicines which are used to kill or inhibit. When I say kill, it kills them. Inhibit means it stops the growth of bacteria, only bacteria. You should not ever get confused that antibiotics are for viruses. When you get a viral disease, never take an antibiotic without consulting a doctor, because antibiotics are not meant for viruses, they're only meant for bacteria. So unless it is proved in your body that you are suffering from a bacterial disease, do not take antibiotics. Why? I will come to that later. So antibiotics, then as the name suggests, anti and biotic, so it's against life and life of only bacteria. The action is bactericidal. That means it will either kill the bacteria or bacteriostatic. It will stop the growth. And of course, its spectrum of activity can be broad spectrum, narrow spectrum. But we will not go into this right now. We want to talk somewhat broadly. So there was a time when antibiotics were not discovered by Dr. Alexander Fleming. That is before, I would say, 1945, not 1928, because 1928 he just discovered. But it was the mass produced in 1945. So what was life before antibiotics were discovered? Which we call pre-antibiotic era. Simple cuts of wounds. Whenever you have a simple cut of wound, you could die. And mothers would give birth to children, and they will, there would be a very high chance that they'll die because again there were infections and there was no way to control those infections. Surgery was extremely risky, so if you needed surgery, you would probably just do without it because otherwise you might die because you might catch an infection. Then there is infant mortality. Infant mortality means when newborns are born, again, they had a very high rate of death because they used to catch bacterial infections. And diseases like simple diseases like flu, tuberculosis, they could become pandemics. Pandemics like you had a COVID pandemic. Imagine if a small flu could do that. And the average life expectancy was only about 40 years. That means now you see people living up to 70 years, 80 years. But at that time, even before you were 40 or around 40, maximum you were 40, you would die. Such was life. And then one day everything changed. How? Dr. Alexander Fleming, he went for a vacation. Of course, it is not, this vacation is not the reason, but it somehow indirectly adds up to it. So in August 1928, Alexander Fleming went on a holiday to the countryside in Suffolk, England. And while he was away, he left the window open, and the lab was messy. As most scientists, they just leave things around, and sometimes they're not very tidy. And he left some petri dishes with bacterial cultures in his lab. There was a petri dish of Staphylococcus aureus. And what happened was that while he was away, probably some mold occurred. It just entered his lab through the open window or some contamination. It came and settled on the petri dish of the bacteria. And since it had a compound which could kill bacteria, it destroyed that colony wherever it was. And Dr. Alexander Fleming was very surprised when he came back. He saw that this had happened. This mold had killed the bacteria, and he called the mold Penicillium notatum. And that led to the discovery of penicillin. However, like I said before, do note that it was not mass produced till 1945. Till then, it was just in theory. Many discoveries remain in theory, and it's only when somebody mass produces these things that things become revolutionized. So he got Nobel Prize in 1945, and it was shared with Howard Florey and Ernst Boris Chain. They helped develop penicillin into a usable drug. So as you can see over here, how life expectancy over the years has changed. The life expectancy was 40 and then climbed up to 50 when in 1950, then it went up to 60 in 2000. In 2010, it was 70, and now it's almost 73 to 75 years. And in highly developed nations, it's more than 80 years. So that is how penicillin completely transformed this world. But is it that simple? I mean, should we just now relax and say, okay, we've done this, we don't need to do anything more? Actually, no. Because, while we were able to somehow control bacteria by antibiotics, something else was happening. Bacteria, they are very primitive forms, but they also in this world, everything has a survival strategy. If human beings have a survival strategy, they know how to survive against all odds. Even the smallest, most primitive life forms like bacteria, viruses know how to survive. They find a way. So there was an emergence of smart bacteria or superbugs, as you can call it. You must have heard about COVID-19, how it kept coming back, making various isoforms, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, Omicron. Same way, bacteria have also devised a strategy to become smarter than us. So these superbugs are bacteria that adapt, survive, and resist threats like antibiotics. How do they do that? They have various ways. One, they make biofilms. Biofilms is just that they make a very tough layer, and that layer cannot be penetrated through antibiotics. And how do they do that? There's something called quorum sensing. Quorum sensing means bacteria, they communicate with each other through a very primitive sensing kind of a signaling kind of a way. And through this signaling, they make a biofilm so your antibiotic cannot even enter your skin. Secondly, they use efflux pumps. Means they have devised a strategy that the moment a drug comes inside their cell, they start pumping it out. They've become that smart. Not all, but some of them. And of course, mutations. Mutations mean that they change their genes so that they no longer remain vulnerable to your drug. They know how to basically dodge the drugs. So I'm trying to make it as simple as possible so that all the children can understand. So this is a very big threat right now. And what is this threat called? Antimicrobial resistance or AMR. And that is threatening us, and everybody needs to know this. So this I've just made a figure to show that first we were in pre-antibiotic era, then we went to 1928 when we discovered antibiotics. Then there was antibiotic overuse. You must have seen that you have a little bit of fever, a bit of cold, and people say, let's go and get antibiotics. Let's eat this, let's eat that. Nobody actually, many times people do not go to doctors. And sometimes even the doctors are over prescribing antibiotic. Okay, take this antibiotic and that's it. But people are not realizing that this is what is leading to antibiotic resistance. Because more the antibiotics given indiscriminately, more the reason why bacteria will make all these survival strategies. And in 2019, it became really bad. Why? Because COVID-19 came. When COVID-19 came, then everybody was a bit careless in the sense there was panic all over. And people were not able to reach to doctors because of lockdowns. And people were also over diagnosing themselves, and they were also finding their own way of dealing with it. And that time, a lot of people use a lot of antibiotics without any kind of regulation, any kind of monitoring. Also, people tend to do one more thing that when there's a course of antibiotic that you have to finish a course for 10 days, people will start feeling better. Like, taken the first dose, second dose, I'm feeling better. I don't want to finish the course for 5 days, 6 days. Why should I bother? Because who wants to take medicines? But that is wrong. Why is it wrong? Because when you leave the course midway, then you have weakened bacteria. Those weakened bacteria are doubly smart in making survival strategies. So, in not complying with the instructions of your doctors, you are further leading to antibiotic resistance. So, there's a ticking time bomb where worldwide return of bacteria is there. So, what is happening? Sometimes our hospitals are overwhelmed because more than 50% of the antibiotics that we've been using so far are now ineffective against certain infections. And some bacteria, we call them all drug resistant. Some are multi-drug resistant, which are known as MDR bacteria, and some are all drug resistant. Very few, but there are some. They are resistant to all known antibiotics. And if we don't take measures by 2015, antibiotic resistance could kill 10 million people per year. That would even surpass cancer. This is the reality right now. And why I like to include this particular thing in every presentation I make, because it is very important for people to know that you should not take antibiotics indiscriminately without any proper instruction. And you once started, you should finish the course. So this is just some reasons why antibiotic resistance is all over. Antibiotics, as I said, without a prescription, people stopping mid-dose, and animals are being given antibiotics. And people who are non-vegetarian are actually consuming animal meat, and those animals are being given antibiotics without medical advice. And of course, hospitals need to be monitored. You can't just put all the onus on the public. You have to take the onus. The hospitals also, they have to be monitored that they should not prescribe antibiotics indiscriminately. Then there's another very big problem that drug pipeline is drying up. We don't have new antibiotics since 1980s. It's not been discovered. So what should be done? So what you can do as children, like I said, I've already said this before. that only use antibiotics when prescribed, always use full prescription, and of course, as much as possible, prevent infections, practice good hygiene, keep your vaccinations up to date, and avoid contact with sick people. Take care of yourself so that you don't find you don't get infections. What else can we do? Now, this is what public can do. What can scientists do? What they're doing already, actually. The next gen antibiotics. We have to discover the new antibiotics. Just like Fleming had done in 1928, all you children who are interested in science, and some of you might be interested in medicine and medical research, then that's the next thing to do. Discover new molecules to target resistant bacteria. And you have to find a way that you design new drugs which can actually, become smarter than the smart bacteria. So it's like a race with bacteria. Then secondly, personalized medicine. That's a new concept that's coming up. It means that every person is different. You have every person, we are giving the same medicine to everybody, but everybody has a different genetic makeup. Everybody's lifestyle is different. Everybody is living in different environment. Some people are living in highly polluted places. Some are living in considerably lesser. So everybody, each person should have a personalized medicine, and that is one field that is coming up nowadays. That can we make personalized medicine, and for that we need artificial intelligence and big data. You must be knowing a lot about artificial intelligence. Most of you are even using it nowadays. And artificial intelligence, as you know, is simply that you are using machines and machine learning, as you call. You're using your algorithms and your computers, programs, and all to put in all the big data and to somehow consolidate it in such a form that we are able to use it. So artificial intelligence and big data will lead to faster diagnosis and predictions of outbreaks. So it can already predict that this is going to happen, and it can also make personalized medicine. So I just wanted to, since I was talking a lot about history and um, what has happened in the past, I just thought I would probably incorporate a real life example of my own lab about the kind of work that we have done in this area. So we are in Department of Biophysics, and my group is working on anti microbial resistance. So what we figured out was that can we work on a natural protein, a protein which is present in your body, because that's what is, first of all, we will have no side effects if we can take it. And if it can kill bacteria faster than many of your antibiotics, then it's the best thing possible. And there would be no toxicity on taking it. So we are working on a protein known as lactoferrin, and these are three departments which have come together to do it. So lacto means milk, and ferrin means iron binding. So it's a red color protein which we have isolated from milk. And it's also present in all our secretions. It's present in tears, in sweat, in lacrimal fluid, in the fluid around the lungs, everywhere. And it's a red colored protein, and it has an antimicrobial function. It is able to kill bacteria, fungi, viruses. And this is one slide to show you that it is present in the milk and other secretions of all mammals. But specifically, if you look at milk, because it's maximally present in milk, then it is maximum in the humans. And in other animals like cow, goat, and horse and camel, it's a little lesser. And it's the least in dogs and rabbits, but it's mostly present in all the mammals. And it has evolved itself. And the main function is why I made that Superman icon, is because it's lactoferrin is like a Superman. That is why your parents must be saying drink milk. It's important because its milk has a lot of such proteins which protect you. They give you good immunity, and they also destroy the bacteria, viruses. And especially for newborns, because it's maximally present in the first milk of the mother. That's called colostrum. For the newborn, it is like a Superman, lactoferrin is. So what we do is structure-based drug design. We actually have isolated lactoferrin, and we have elucidated three-dimensional structure. I will not go deep into the structure because that's out of the purview of the lecture. But using the structure, what we did was that, during COVID, you must have heard about black fungus, also known as mucormycosis. It just spread all over the place. And people are losing their eyes, and people were losing their lives because of mucor, because it spreads so fast. It's actually a fungal infection, but it spreads so fast that you are unable to save anybody. It's very, and there's only one drug for it, amphotericin, and you don't have any other drug. And that drug, it acts slowly, and mucormycosis fungi, and in the meantime, they destroy your eyes, they destroy your face, and they kill you also. So what we did was we used lactoferrin for to see if it can inhibit mucormycosis, because we don't have any other molecule except amphotericin for this. And we saw that indeed it was able to inhibit mucormycosis. And that was one result which got reported in lots of newspapers. And right now we are beginning human clinical trials. When you start working on a molecule, then first thing what you have to do is that you have to work in your lab. You have to do wet biology, which requires buffers and isolation purification. Then you have to do in silico work, which require computers and all. You do drug designing and all that. Then when you take it forward, then you go and do animal studies. And after animal studies, you take it to human trials. So we have done animal studies, and now we're taking to human trials. So this was just to show you how, in real time, a scientist in a country would work and get to this point. So, okay, now quickly going to the next invention. The last invention of 1928 is iron lung, which was a life-saving machine. As you know, polio, you must have heard about polio. It's a highly infectious viral disease, and it affects children under 5 years old majorly. And as you can see, the children are not able to walk because it paralyzes. So we used to have epidemics of polio because at that time we didn't have polio virus. And iron lung was actually made. I won't say discovered because it was actually a machine, a contraption that was made. It became a life-saving device during the polio epidemic. And as you can see that only the face is outside, the rest of the body is inside. It creates an airtight chamber. And so this was some kind of an engineering. I won't call it directly a drug discovery or a molecule. This is an engineering. And it was not done by a doctor, but it was done by Philip Drinker and Louis Agassiz Shaw. And they were professors of industrial hygiene at the Harvard School of Public Health. And when he tried it for the first, as you can see in this child with a small toy, when this child was put inside this machine, that was the first person who was being used. So in just 15 minutes of iron lung, the first patient treated improved dramatically. And when this child was able to speak, she asked for an ice cream. And Philip Drinker was so emotional that he started crying. That this is the way we can save people who are having paralysis. Because polio ultimately leads to death also, because all your muscles are actually, simply getting paralyzed. So this, I just thought maybe children would like to see that this is a very strange case of a man called Paul Alexander. He lived all his life in iron lung. He contracted polio when he was 6 until he was 78 when he died. He was an iron lung, and he didn't let that affect him. We make so many excuses. We can't do this because of this or that. And here is a man who lived all his life in an iron lung, and still, despite being so immotile, he became a lawyer. He graduated from college. He even wrote his autobiography using a stick which was attached to his mouth through time. It's a very inspiring story. Maybe go and Google it and you will be inspired by this person. It always inspires me. I feel I should not worry about small things, because here is an example of a person who did this. So ultimately, iron lung declined in use because we had modern ventilators, and also polio vaccines were discovered by Jonas Salk, and they declined in use, and now they are replaced by, you must have heard about ventilators. People go to ICUs and ventilators are fitted inside them. And definitely modern ventilators are better than iron lungs. They don't let you be that immotile. And what is the future? The future is bionic lung. Bionic lung means that it's not made of something hard metallic thing or something. It is made so that you can use it. It fits in like a normal lungs, and it will take in oxygen and remove carbon dioxide. You can put it inside your body or outside as you like. And this is the future of, if you start from iron lung to ventilators, and now we're moving to bionic lungs. So finally, just to tell you that how science has rescued us, as you can see, we had many pandemics in the past: Black Death, bubonic plague, Spanish flu, Asian flu. But in the last 50 years, we had only two: AIDS and COVID-19. And what is the best thing? that they actually, unfortunately, because we are not very careful about our practices, pollution is still there, and we are also doing deforestation, and we are actually, the distance between animals and humans is decreasing. All those things are there. That, of course, needs another lecture. But because of these two animals, it was a zoonotic transmission. So unfortunately, we had AIDS and we had COVID-19 from chimpanzee and bat, respectively. But thanks to drugs and vaccines, drugs in case of AIDS and vaccine in case of COVID-19, that we were able to overcome. And yes, there were tragedies, but now I would say that a person who's having AIDS is who and who's been given AIDS medicine is able to have a similar life expectancy as a normal person, and that is a great achievement, all thanks to science. So now let's imagine 50 years from now. We've already taken a journey from 1928. So what will happen after 50 years? Of course, people like me won't survive, but you people who are small children, I'm sure you will. I'm hoping you will get to see these inventions. What will happen in medicine, healthcare? We won't have any incurable diseases because we'll be using gene editing that will eliminate genetic disorders, and cancer will be 100% treatable. We'll have personalized AI doctors. They will scan your body in real time and they will predict and prevent illnesses even before they can happen. And we will have bioprinted 3D bioprinted organs, so that if your liver fails, you can just have another organ which is 3D printed according to you. Of course, the way I'm explaining is very simple, but yeah, it takes a lot of work, a lot of AI, a lot of machine learning, and a lot of sacrifice of scientists, researchers all over the world. Of course, we may also have bionic enhancements for people who have disabilities, who don't have hands, legs. They can have bionic hands and legs and function as normal people. And when it comes to longevity, it is predicted that people may live past 150 years while staying physically young. We are expected to see nanobots in our bloodstream, tiny robots which will repair cells, fight infections, and very interesting concept of digital conscious uploading, in which people will be able to upload their minds to computers, so that there would be a kind of a digital immortality. Means you will actually, your body will die but your mind will never die. Now just imagine if I could upload my mind into a kind of a computer, and if I die, then somebody can interact with me, because that machine will be able to learn what I would say or how I would respond to that particular question. So that way you could stay immortal. And then, of course, this is all futuristic, but I wanted to end this lecture on a positive note. We'll have smart cities, which are AI managed, pollution free, self sustaining, vertical farms. Because, now we are having a shortage of space. So we are hoping that we can have vertical farms, solar roads, and underground high speed transport. And it's expected that we will have multiplanetary species where we can live on Earth, Mars, other planets, and work together to explore the universe. And of course, self flying cars and teleportation. So I would end this here by showing you my books. The Secret of Red Crystals is an autobiography of my own, my journey in research. Dragonfly's Purpose is also my autobiography when I got a autoimmune disease, Guillain-Barré syndrome, that you must have heard about, that people in Pune are now contracting it, and it's often fatal. And I got it and how I recovered from it. So that's Dragonfly's Purpose. Warriors in White is about COVID-19 frontline workers. Kovi's Promise and Tumhara Bholu is about how a child copes with the COVID by talking to a baby coronavirus whom he calls Kovi. It is a kind of a fantasy book, but which is centered around science communication. My latest book is Conversations with Shambhu, in which I have mainly targeted mental health amongst children, amongst youth, and of course, anybody can read it. And it's also a bit imaginary, but it's about a child who meets a boy called Shambhu, and he gives him the 5 laws of happiness. And of course, as you can see from the cover, there's a Labrador dog, and I feel that having a pet is very important for your general well-being. And I have a YouTube channel called Popular Science that you can, if you like, you could subscribe to. And finally, I would end this lecture because Marie Curie is she's an inspiration, that nothing in life is to be feared. That's what she said. Don't fear anything. It is only to be understood. You have to understand. Once you understand things, you stop fearing them. And that is what science does to you. It makes you understand things. Even when you are facing any kind of emotional problem, try to understand it. Write it down and try to understand what it is. When you understand, you will relax. And now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. It has been a wonderful lecture. It was really, really very nice. And I'm sure all the kids will be of the same opinion. Aniket, you can ask the kids to take their questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am, for such an enlightening and inspiring session. Your insights have truly made a lasting impact, providing our students a different perspective altogether. So, like Poonam ma'am, she suggested that we can open the floor for questions. If you have any doubts or want to explore more about the topics we've covered today, so now is your chance. So all we want is you can turn on your video, virtually raise your hands, and then we'll connect you one by one to ask your questions directly to ma'am. So turn on your video, virtually raise your hand, and we'll call you one by one. Okay? So yes. Um, First of all, we have, okay, I'll just add you all on Spotlight so that it becomes easier for us. So we have, as of now, I'm putting 3 students. So first of all, we'll go with Akshaj. Can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am. I really enjoyed this session. Ma'am, I had just like one doubts. For example, ma'am, you said that we would be able to upload our memories onto computers for digital consciousness. So for that, ma'am, like I was thinking in my mind, it was going like, okay, so for this kind of security and all, won't we need something like quantum computers, which can handle the insane amount of computation required? And then,
Absolutely.
ma'am,
Hmm. Absolutely. That is what we require. Right now, the kind of rudimentary system we have, it's not rudimentary if you see, if you compare it with the previous times, we have come very far. But, this is very futuristic. I'm talking about 50 years hence. So, yes, at that time, I'm hoping and everybody hopes that we would be needing those and we would be able to have that kind of quantum computer, supercomputer support. Yeah.
yes, ma'am, because also, ma'am, I was uh, having a doubt, ma'am, two more. Ma'am. One is that, ma'am, like the ethical part of this, ma'am. Like,
Ethical
is it?
part. Yeah, I suppose when you talk about this, then maybe this you can't force this to somebody. Maybe we would like to sign a consent form. Only then it is possible. So if somebody signs a consent form and uploads, then probably it is ethical.
Yes, ma'am. And ma'am, the third thing was, ma'am, like these are different things and related to a variety of different fields. So, ma'am, just starting like with this camp competition because I had gone into the camp NASTA and I had secured national rank 3 in my grade 8.
Okay.
So, I was just asking, ma'am, like, what opportunities can camp offer me so that I can, learn more about this?
I think Poonam, you'd like to answer this.
Yes, yes. For that, we can connect you with the support team and they'll be able to, guide you more. So in camp, as you know, you're having the NASTA exam. And apart from that, you'll be having scientific excursions and these knowledge sharing sessions and various other opportunities. And that in detail, each of them will be guided to you. So you have a support number. I'll just share it, email as well as the contact details in the chat below, and you can connect with them. They'll be able to guide you in full detail.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Meanwhile, we can move on to Shubhang Jujunwala. Can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Good morning, teachers. I am Shubham. I really enjoyed this session. I have some doubts. Um, Generally, I wanted to know what is a transplant?
Sorry. Are you talking about organ transplant, Shubham?
Yes, ma'am. organ transplant?
Yeah, organ transplant is simply that, supposing if you talk about, say, liver transplant. So your liver has become dysfunctional. It is not able to do what it's required to do, right? So then what you do is that you find another person who matches your genetic like that, so that, because what happens when you transplant somebody else's liver into you, then your body can reject if it is very different from your genes. So it is very advisable to have somebody whose genetic makeup is similar to yours. So once there is no rejection, then that person's liver can be transplanted into you. And same way, eye transplant, corneal transplant, when you talk about eye, then corneal transplant, somebody who's maybe somebody is dead, somebody just died. So that person's cornea can be taken out up till some few hours of his death. That person's cornea can be taken out and transplanted into a blind person who also needs a functional cornea. So it's just like taking from one person to the other and putting the functional one so that the dysfunctional one is no longer required.
And then if the body rejects it, what happens?
If the body will reject, then the experiment has failed. So even before doing the transplant, first some tests are run so that there is no risk of rejection. So the doctors will check you, supposing you want a transplant and there is a donor, the person who comes to give the transplant. So both of your typing will be done. And when there is no risk of transplant, then only the transplant will take place, otherwise not.
Okay. And one more question I also had to ask. As in the closing slides, you had in like after in next 50 years, we would be able to update our mind. And even if we are, as you said, dead, we some person can interact with us. So, ma'am, if there is in the next 50 years, if it is possible, like there is already a dead person which has not done this thing, can we then insert this system into his brain?
No. In that case, what happens is that, supposing I'm living and I want that after my death, this thing should be uploaded, right? That my mind should still stay. Then I need to give permission. And only then it can be done, not otherwise.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Can we move on to Aisha Jain? Can you please unmute yourself and ask your question? Aisha?
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. I am from Sapphire International School, Noida. I had a doubt that I really enjoyed this science session. So I had a doubt that when I why science is like so interesting. Why only in science we can make so many projects, so many connections to the electricity and this projects.
Aisha, I think not just in science, you can even do it in engineering, and you can do it in manufacturing. Science is, of course, even in science, there are many branches of science. And then even if you go to any other field also, there also you can make new things.
Okay. Thank you.
David, can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Do we have David with us?
Yes, sir. Sir, I was just about to change my clothes when I wondered what are these clothes and our body, what are they made of that makes the clothes easy to wear on our body.
See, the clothes that are on your body are mostly either cotton or wool, as I can see, or these are very flexible. Flexible means they're easy to move, they're easy to fold. They're made of these materials so that they're comfortable and soft. Cotton is basically, it is grown. It is grown as a crop. And it is made of the cotton balls are very, very. Have you ever touched cotton balls? They're very soft, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So, so your clothes are made of that only.
David, do we have you with us? Oh, he's there, yes. David?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Did you get the answer for your question?
Yes, sir. I
Okay,
got the answer.
great, great.
But I didn't get that. Other than cotton, how are clothes made of wool, silk, all the other fibers? How are they also like cotton, easy to wear?
They're actually manufactured in such a way. When you go to the manufacturing factory, then you will see that they're manufacturing in such a way that they become totally soft. And often, sometimes two fabrics are mixed together. Like cotton will be mixed with silk, or cotton will be mixed with rayon, so that they are safe and comfortable.
I think since we do not have much time, we'll just take one more question. And in case if your question hasn't been answered, don't worry. You can write the question. I'll just write down my email address, or we can share Dr. Sujata or Dr. Khan's email address, and we can forward the questions and get the answers for you. All right, can we move on to the last question? Rudraksh, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question? Rudraksh, we cannot hear you.
Uh, can't hear.
Rudraksh, can you check your mic, or you can type in the question in the chat?
Still so many raised hands, which is great. Ma'am has generated enough curiosity in the kids.
Absolutely.
The questions are not ending. All the questions can write. They can write an email to Aniket. He has put up his email ID in the chat box, and I will try to get your queries answered offline.
Did you type in your question, Rudraksh?
I think we
All the
have.
kids raising, please write the question in the chat box. It's not possible probably to allow everyone to speak at this moment. It's already getting late. uh, all of you either put the question in the chat box or write an email.
Otherwise, you can share my email if they want to, whatever they want to ask, they can. I will answer all of them on email.
So, ma'am.
So if no one is writing, I will put ma'am's email ID. To all the curious kids out there, I have put the speaker's email ID. Ma'am has been generous enough to share her email ID. You can directly write your queries, and ma'am would personally answer each of your queries. So please write to her. I hope you have checked the chat box. Please do. Will it be okay?
Yes.
Shall we close the session then?
Yeah, we can. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It has been phenomenal. The right kind of a lecture to mark the Science Day. Thank you so very much. And you have already shown your books and YouTube channel, so I'm sure all the curious kids would watch your YouTube channel. And ma'am keeps putting interesting videos out there, so you'll get a lot of science, in an interesting manner. So please subscribe to her YouTube channel and get more of your queries answered there. So thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank
And
you
I
so
thank
much.
you on behalf of the Indian Women Scientists Association Delhi branch. We are really, truly grateful to you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Dr. Poonam, and thank you, Aniket.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing